welcome to the New Earth podcast, which will guide you towards awakening and the embodiment of your highest self through holistic living advice, science, yoga, personal experiences, and expert guests. Let's grow together and build a new Earth. I'm Nancy Crupi, I'm a scientist, and I have a PhD in biology and 15 years of international scientific research experience in fields from inflammation to aging, neurobiology, nutrition, metabolic disorders, and much more. I'm also a Kundalini Awakened spiritual teacher, healer, and coach, and I practice and teach Kundalini Tantra.
And I'm Robie Newman-Paris. I'm a biologist with experience in neuroscience, and I've studied the ancient yogic sciences as well as other Eastern philosophies with gurus and yogis while spending a year and a half in India and in Bali. I now teach Kriya Yoga, breathwork, and meditation and help guide people in their spiritual development.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the New Earth podcast. Today we're joined by a very special guest, Shanti, and she's an Ayurvedic practitioner. She's a medicine woman. She's a massage therapist. She's a woman of many talents and much knowledge. So we're very excited to interview her today on her expertise. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super grateful to be here and connecting with you both.
Hi, Shanti. Thank you for coming.
So yeah, why don't we just start by going over your background a little bit? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got to be in the place where you are now, and maybe some of the lessons that you learned in that path.
Yeah, okay. So ever since I was a kid, I knew I've always been caring of others, and I always knew I wanted to help others feel better. So I thought, oh, that means I need to be a doctor, right? So I started going down that path and going to school for Western medicine. And I had my own health issues. Even as a kid, I had back issues, I had acne, when I didn't have my period for a year, I was forced to be on birth control for hormonal balance. I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, had unexplained headaches and bloating, and doctors were like, oh, you have too many issues, you'll have to come back, and they get you in and out in 10 or 15 minutes. And in the programs, there was one particular moment in classes where I was like, this is wrong, something's off here, where it's just, there was a woman where she had been on the same medication for 9 years and was having a slew of liver issues, liver failure, gut issues. And they were like, oh, we're recommending exploratory surgery. No, the exploratory surgery probably won't even find the problem. Exploratory surgery can cause more problems because they're just digging around in there, and she can't even afford it. She had a kid. And on the bottle itself, it said, do not take for more than a few months. And I'm like, she's been on it for years. And I was like, something's wrong. And the universe divinely guided me. I didn't finish. I dropped out and moved to California and actually lived in a tent in the mountains with my dog and my cat. And I was like, I don't know what my purpose is, but it's not here. It's not in Texas. And I just don't want to be in Texas. And then I found a university for Ayurveda, and I went to a program there. And that is really what expanded my knowledge. And the first class, I was like, yep, this is everything I didn't even know I needed and more. And Ayurveda, being the knowledge and science of all of life, it's even helped me understand myself, my character traits, my physical body, have love for my physical body and my character traits, and also understand others, because I'm like, oh, that's why you are the way you are, because you're a Pitta or you're a Vata, yeah, it's a bit of my background. And
That's a beautiful.
Yeah, in school for Ayurveda, I started healing myself of all these issues. And actually 2 months into the program, in my apartment, I had a ceiling fall on me, and found out I was, for the past 2.5 years, I've been living in severe black mold.
Oh, wow.
So I was there, I was constantly having upper respiratory issues and getting sick, and I was in bedridden pain for months. So in the program, when we were like learning the body work and all the treatments, luckily I got to be the dummy for all the treatments receiving from the professors, because they're like, oh, Shanti needs help. She's physically in a lot of pain, so let's give her all the treatment. So I really got to firsthand see Ayurveda heal me of like all my gut issues. I used to get bloated every time I ate, and I'm like, what's going on? My period cramps used to be so bad. I would like fall to the ground crying in pain, and then also like your mental state being in a lot of pain as well. So I got to firsthand experience, hey, I can also show people there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I heal myself of all these things, so I can show you that there's a light at the end of the tunnel for these things as well. And it doesn't have to be pharmaceuticals.
It's beautiful. Your story is beautiful. I think it's incredibly, incredibly insightful. And it's definitely, well, I feel like one of the most common things that bring people to the right path is having their own trauma, their own issue associated with something that so that they realize that there is a problem to solve. And they start leading the way for others to solve that problem in alternative ways, because they realize that the traditional ways, not the traditional, like the modern ways, actually, the Western ways, don't actually work. So I think this is a common thing in a lot of people that take finally the path of Eastern medicine and holistic medicine, to realize on their own body, on their own life, that unfortunately Western medicine does not have all the answers, and oftentimes is actually completely not tailored on us, and instead it tends to consider us as average that are designed on people that are really not us at all. And I like what you said about the Pitta energy. We talked about these things with a little bit in a previous episode, but we didn't fully explain what these things mean, and so I would like to really this time give people also an introduction on what Ayurveda is and all these different kinds of energies and how they function in a sense, and what they mean to us, how they having different kinds of energies and whether we can change them, but how different, like having a different personality type may affect how prone we are to certain things, or how we're supposed to take care of our health. Because something that I love about you is also that you have a perfect skin. You love your body. You're so beautiful. You're like so shiny. I really love your light and how you shine your light in the world. Look at her. She's incredible. And
Same to
so,
you.
but what I mean is like what you're doing works. Like I can tell that what you're doing works, because I can tell that really, like I saw, I think, a video of you on Instagram or something, like in a pool where you were like shining your sexy body, and your body is like so beautiful. Like you have like, I don't know how to explain. It's just so smooth and beautiful and perfect. And so I think you're definitely doing something that works, because otherwise this will not happen, right? This cannot be just genetics. It's something we go through so much stress and so much poisonous things every day, that being able to maintain that kind of state takes effort and takes wisdom and takes a lot of really active actions to promote it, right? And to maintain it. And so what are you doing, Shanti, to be this beautiful?
Yeah, so interesting. Some of it is like the foundation is genetics. So I'm a Kapha first, and then Pitta. So I'm a Kapha Pitta, and Kapha means for people who don't know that are watching this, there's a 3 doshas, Kapha, Pitta, Vata. I'll go a little more into that. But Kapha dosha is earth and water, and Pitta is fire and water. So people who are Kapha in nature, like me, are just innately a little more voluptuous, a little bit bigger. And because we have the earth and the water nature, we tend to have we have more like water in us. So we usually tend to have, I don't need to put on lotion. I've been like that my whole life. Like, I don't need to put on lotion. My skin is usually okay unless I feel an imbalance. Then I do, because that's the nature of kapha. But then because I had the pitta nature as a child, like I was dealing with issues with acne. People with pittas tend to get acne really easily. So you have to learn to balance that, the fire and the oily quality. I was eating chips and cookies for lunch as a teenager, like, and the doctors were like, hey, you have acne, are you eating chips and cookies for lunch? No, they don't ask that. They're just like, put some chemicals on your face.
I know, right?
Yeah. And so I guess, so starting off as a, I mean, well, I guess I'll go into like the foundations of what is Ayurveda. in a bit. But what I'm doing for myself is I'm understanding and found out what my prakriti, my natural doshic nature that I was born as from the sperm and egg of my mother and father, and the elements that were dominant in them when I was conceived. And then also the lifestyle my mom lived in the womb contributes to the elements that you're born as. So that your prakriti is what's, your hair color, your bone structure, those things cannot change. But like your mental dosha, that stuff can change throughout life depending on your lifestyle or the season, or if you're working out or if you're not. And so there's a lot to Ayurveda. It's overwhelming. I will tell you that as a practitioner, right? So that's where I try to make it like simple, easy, and fun. Like, do you think I do all of the Ayurvedic rules every single day? No. I just pick a few that work for me. And then we're here on this earth to experience life and to taste good food and to have good times. And sometimes that means staying up late. You're not going to be doing the traditional Ayurvedic, go to bed before 10 and wake up, especially in the community that I've been working in. Sometimes the events go to really late, so I can help bring this knowledge to Ayurveda at these communities. So I recognize when, okay, if I haven't been doing everything exactly right, let me start implementing and make sure I'm being really, really mindful with my herbs for these following days. That'll help put me back in alignment. Or, being mindful of like, what season is it? Like right now it's summer, it's really hot. So I'm not going to be eating a bunch of spicy food or having like fermented stuff. And I'm going to be introducing more herbs that are cooling, because right now the fire pitta is increasing in everybody. And in Ayurveda, that fire can go to the mind and can cause mental derangements like jealousy or anger, which is maybe why everyone's noticing, why am I so aggressive in the car with the LA traffic and during the summer? So that fire is probably going to the head. So introducing herbs and foods that are cooling, like hibiscus and mint, that's, trying to live in with season with the doshas and understanding what your prakriti is, not overwhelming yourself with too much Ayurvedic rules, but just doing like a few every day is how I maintain things.
Amazing.
But basically, based on what you're saying, if we all follow the Ayurvedic principles, maybe we'll also prevent car accidents and prevent like a lot of things that happen in society, aggressiveness, violence, crimes. Like if we all can somewhat follow the principles of Ayurveda to understand ourselves, first of all, and to understand that the seasons affect us, that the heat affects us, that all of these elements and circumstances affect us in a way that don't just affect ourselves, but the way in which we show up in society and how we affect society as a whole and others, that will prevent us a lot of trouble in society in general. So I think this is something we should keep in mind. And that's why also in this podcast, we're trying to spread the Ayurvedic principles, because it's something that definitely everybody should know. Like, how about you, Robie? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's about being mindful. It's about being aware of what's happening on the inside, but also external factors. And that's something that maybe we haven't touched on as much in the podcast. We've talked a lot about internal things. We've talked a lot about how your traumas, how your upraising, impacts your development, impacts how you're living day to day. But there are these external factors too, like the microcosm is the macrocosm. These things are all related. We have all of these connections to all these different aspects of nature around us. It's really like a field of being that we exist in. And if you kind of count out those external features, you're going to be missing out so much of the big picture. And yeah, from what you're saying, it seems like being aware of these situations, understanding, okay, these are the influences that might be affecting me a little more strongly now, like you said, with the heat, or maybe there's other things that come up in your life, and then knowing, okay, this is the way that I can start to rebalance that, because it's rather than waiting for the problem to get really bad and then maybe you have to have that exploratory surgery because they can't find any problem with you. It's going and finding the solutions in that moment. You understand, okay, this is how I'm feeling, I can implement this solution that's going to direct my energy gently back towards the neutral position, back towards the center, rather than waiting and just kind of experiencing the cumulative effects of whatever that influence is and not understanding it until it's reached like a crescendo of negative effects in your life. So yeah, that's awesome. And then I'd love it if you could just maybe give a little bit of definition for some of these words that you're using, like dosha, I know you mentioned, and prakriti. Just in case any of our listeners don't know what these words mean, I'd love to hear about what they mean, both in, the very technical sense, but also from what you've learned in your own experience.
Yeah, I would also like to touch on how you brought up, I always explain we are the microcosm working within the macrocosm of the world, and that can explain of Ayurveda. We're made out of the 5 elements: earth, air, water, fire, and space. Yes, don't forget space.
Mhm.
Just like the world outside of us. And that's why Ayurvedic practitioners can help people where I've even seen clients that have seen other Ayurvedic practitioners or other holistic naturopaths, and they didn't even get to the root cause, because we look at where are the elements in the body and in the tissues, and they live in this certain organ and certain tissues of the body, that we look at where was the initial thing that went wrong. Okay, what is the elements that's the most out of balance, and where is the initial ones and what's the root cause? Is it diet? Is it stress? Is it environment? Is it karma from a past life?
Mhm.
And is it trauma? There's so many facets to what can cause a dis-ease in the body. And prakriti, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, we have our innate nature. When your mom and your dad contribute an egg and a sperm, they're contributing their elements, their doshas, and then the lifestyle your mom lives in the womb, like what she eats, contributes to who you are. And so that's your prakriti, your natural doshic nature that does not change. So like your facial structure, your hair color, mainly like your bone structure, you can like gain and lose weight, but your prakriti never changes. Like eye color, that's not going to change. And then dosha is in Ayurveda the combinations of the elements. So vata, pitta, kapha. Kapha, as I had said, is earth and water. Pitta is fire and water, and vata is air and space. And so you can have a mental dosha, and you can also have a physical dosha, sometimes a little bit different. My mental dosha is vata, so I'm always just thinking and always have thoughts going on, so I have to make sure that I'm taking care of that, because that can lead to anxiousness, or that can lead to insomnia but it's also really great because it can be really creative and always having new thoughts and new ideas coming in. And working like you had mentioned, of taking this information and understanding as like a collective, where Ayurveda really helped me love myself for the first time. When I was in school, so I was like a ballet dancer throughout school. I lived in the gym, ate super healthy, but I was always like, I was classified as like obese to American standards, even though I was working out like twice a day, still doing Pilates, dancing full time, only eating smoothies and salads. Um, and then in Ayurveda, I was like, oh, it's because I'm a kapha. I'm just thick. Okay, that's just how I am. And no matter as hard as I work out, I'm not gonna be like my friends who are a vata type, where they're looking at me being like, oh, I wish I could just eat and get curves like you. And then that can help them have love for themselves as well. And then understanding that we have innate nature. So because of people had mentioned vatas, they're very, very like creative. Those are the ones where they're very slender. They could just eat and eat and eat and never put on weight. But because of the wind and the air, that can cause imbalances very easily of like anxiety. And then people with pitta dosha, that's a lot of fire. Usually they're very, very good leaders. They're very good directors. They're the ones where they work out one time and they put on muscle, or, they love doing marathons for fun. And then kapha in nature, the earth, are very grounded. We're a little bit thicker, so it's easier to put on weight or get depressed. So it also helped me understand people in my life. Like I had a business partner who's just a lot of fire. I was like, yo, like you need to like be grounded sometimes, and it's okay to take days off. And so it helped me understand people in my life, like, oh, that's the way you are. And if we understand that in society, not a lot of people think like, oh, hey, this person's different than me. And some people do know that, oh, everyone's different than me, but they don't really like understand this is your innate nature. And okay, so I just got to love you for that. But then you can also understand this is your innate nature, but hey, there's a little bit of an imbalance. Maybe we need to like introduce some herbs and stuff to like balance this. Yeah.
Herbs is the new secret. Like you should take some herbs. Yeah, I love what you just said. Like everything is so important that we understand each other. And I'm a medium, and so I channel people energy. So I understand how people function from energetic and psychological standpoint in a different way. Like when I'm close to people, even when I talk to people, I channel like their software. It's almost as if I can beat them in my head. I know exactly how they perceive me, how they feel, how they are, how they think. And it's interesting to see how people are just like, I feel like without having these understandings, you will think, oh, this person is choosing to not understand me or is choosing to not. And it's not a choice, it's just we're just different. And because we're different, we perceive the world in a different way. And that is due, as you said, to something that is innate. You can't change. Like we are consistent with our shape. Like a lion is a lion in all of its molecules. A gazelle is a gazelle in all of its molecules. So it's not that we choose to be in our head in a certain way and our body is different. It's all consistent. Like the fact that you are, as you said, Vata, Pitta, or like all of these different energies, that determines how you are as well, like mentally and psychologically, energetically. And that's something you cannot change that much because it ultimately we have certain degrees of freedom, as you said, to change certain things. You can lose some weight, you can gain some muscles, you can change a little bit, but ultimately your bone structure is going to be the same. Like the amount of weight you can lose and you can, in a way that you stay healthy, is always going to fluctuate within a certain narrow window. And you can't change more than that. That's your body shape. That's your how your mind is, and you're not going to change it much. Like I also had a lot of metamorphosis throughout my life, and I changed in a lot of ways, but ultimately my essence is always the same since I was a kid. Like we're all the same all the time. We can change in the sense that we can acquire wisdom and understand others better and stop being so egoic and so much in our own head, but our essence is the same and ultimately determines what kind of function we have in the world. And so, as you said, for example, I have a lot of Pitta energy. And so I'm always like, I have a Pitta energy and I have a leader personality type for Myers-Briggs. I'm a ENFJ. So together have this thing, but also that takes like, I always do a lot of stuff and I work out and I'm always overly busy and overly trying to make the world a better place every second of my life. And so that's overwhelming sometimes. Like I need to balance it out. So like I love, you should give me a diagnosis of all of my energies one time. Like, so
Yeah.
I would love to know exactly all the
As
things that I am.
Pittas love learning. They get
Oh,
obsessed with the
I'm a
like,
sucker.
oh, here's a new thing. I'm gonna read all the books, I'm gonna listen to all the podcasts, and I'm gonna dedicate my life to this for now. And then oh, here's another one, and just constantly, because I'm a Pitta too. So I'm like, oh, this is I want to get a certification in this and a certification in this. And I have several certifications.
Yeah.
Okay, at what point should I just integrate this and practice? And I love how you said, you're connecting with people's software. And I like to call myself like a human software engineer sometimes. And there's whole like biohacking term is like really popular. And I'm seeing all over the place. I'm like, you're claiming that as biohacking. I'm like, that's Ayurveda, that's Ayurveda, that's Ayurveda. And people aren't honoring where they're learning this knowledge from, because they're like, oh, hey, I came up with this new breath work or this new biohacking. I'm like, that's Ayurveda, but it's okay, And I'm like, Ayurveda is the original biohacking. It's actually considered the world's oldest form of holistic medical science. It was 6,000 to 10,000 years documented in books, and then before that was only spoken in hymns. It was sung. So that's why like our school books are actually in Sanskrit, in an ancient language, and they're in like songs, because that's how they memorized all of this information. Luckily, I didn't have to memorize. I was able to have PowerPoint slides and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And it's really interesting. I've noticed that too. Like, my background is in yoga and I've studied a lot of like the text, like the actual, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Yoga Sutras, all of these things. And there's so many new in quote things that are coming out in like the I guess like the new age spiritual community and now in like different scientific research settings as well, but kind of just like confirming what people have been knowing in this like Vedic culture for thousands of years. And
Yep.
in one sense, I think it's like, it's good that it's coming out like this because, it's giving it more credibility in the modern eye. But I agree, it would be nice if people were giving a little more acknowledgement to the real roots of it. But again, I think it's like it is overall net very positive thing because these things work, in the Vedic society, they thought of it as a science. Yoga, Ayurveda, it's a science. A lot of people, and less so with Ayurveda, I think it's pretty well established as a science at this point. But with yoga, people just think of it as, oh, like this is some kind of like mystical spiritual practice. But no, that's really not how it was looked at by the ancient yogis. They saw it as a science. And what they're doing is doing science on their inner awareness, on their mind, on their energy to understand truly what they were. And in my view, that's the most powerful science you can do because the more that you understand about yourself, again, relating to the microcosm and the macrocosm levels, the more you understand about yourself, the more you understand about the world around you, and the more, you can be open to receiving, the best possible view and the best possible wisdom from that world. And the more you can, express your love in that world because the more that you understand something, the more that you can really appreciate it. A lot of times the biggest thing that holds us back is uncertainty and unknown. Like the fear of the unknown is one of the biggest things that holds us back. We really fear what we don't know. So the more that we know, the more that we can accept and the more that we can in turn love. So yeah, I completely agree.
And I
Yeah.
love what, especially something, I think we're saying something important here that goes way beyond Ayurveda and way beyond medicine. And it's something that I deeply care for so many reasons, which is that you can be a scientist. You can learn the world by observing yourself. You can learn the world by observing others. You can learn how things function, and you can be in control of understanding how things work. And unfortunately today, and I say that as a scientist, and I'm a coach and I help people to recover from narcissistic abuse. And unfortunately, a lot of people today, a lot of my clients first go to doctors, first go to therapists, to psychologists, and they are told or they're treated as if they can't learn how they actually work, that they have to depend from someone else to know how they function, how to solve their problems. And so this is creating a caste right now, which is the caste of the healthcare system, of like the doctors, the psychologists, therapists in general, which is a caste in which you have to wait for someone to tell you what the truth is, how you function, how the world around you function. And that's completely false. That's ridiculous. Everybody can go around in the world and observe and learn, and based on that have their own understanding. And obviously the more intelligent you are, the better you're going to understand. The longer you're going to spend in the world, the more people you're going to meet in your life, the more things you're going to do, the more you're going to learn. And so obviously it's useful to learn from a discipline like Ayurveda or like Western medicine or biology, any kind of discipline that has already been laid out by others. And so learning through books is very useful because it's a conglomerate of knowledge that someone else has already done, so you don't have to do everything on your own. At the same time, there are a lot of bias in a lot of sciences today, especially in science, because it's very much about capitalism at this point. It's not anymore about science. And so it's good I love especially the idea of, for example, I was born in the town where the Mediterranean diet was discovered. And so my whole life, I followed the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet is a diet that has been perfected through hundreds of years of trial and error. And the reason why people kept it was because it was healthy. So same thing as Ayurveda, it's been perfected for thousands of years, and people kept it because it works. And so I think that history is the most accurate experiment you can ever do, because in whatever we keep in history, it's because that works for the purpose that we want, right? And so I think it's an important message I want to give people, that you can learn from by yourself and by reading books. You don't need anybody to tell you what the truth is, but going to professionals can be a useful way of taking advantage of people who have already studied all there is and who are suckers for knowledge, and so love studying and love learning, and so they can give you their own wisdom, their own what they have learned from other clients as well. So that's always very useful and much more efficient than doing things on your own. However, nobody has to tell you what the truth is, in a sense. Like, you can discover the truth by yourself, by studying or by observing yourself first and foremost.
Intuition. Yep. You know, I call myself a flexitarian as my a flexitarian as my diet, because people ask, oh, am I vegan? Do I eat animal products? I'm a flexitarian. I do intuitive eating. I listen to my body, which I like to guide others through as well. And, you know, like the knowledge of Ayurveda back in the day, like the sages, the doctors of Ayurveda did not charge for healing people. People just brought them food or they got free housing. And sadly, that's not the economy we live in nowadays. Like, I would love if I could just heal people for, you know, for free, which I do that as well. And I feel like where you had touched on, where if people understand why this information, which I feel like, you know, I've been to other practitioners as well, and I've had people leave other practitioners and come to me because they didn't get that knowledge or understanding. And I feel like that's where I separate myself from other Ayurvedic practitioners. Like, I'm going to not just say, here's the fish, I'm going to teach you how to fish, I'm going to show you how to reel the line, I'm going to show you so you can teach your kids all this information. Because I like to say, if I'm doing my job right, you won't need me anymore. Like, that's not real medicine. I don't want to see you coming back months later. How can I get you better the fastest I can? Usually my clients have symptoms relieved already in like a week or like a month. They're already having significant relief after having no relief for years. So it's really teaching people to fish with this knowledge and information. And that's, you know, like you said, helping them learn and understand their own intuition. Because if you understand, another quote of mine I like to say, know the rules of Ayurveda so you can break them wisely. You know, if you know the foundations of like what you're supposed to be eating and all these rules, then continue to live your life. Don't overwhelm yourself. This is a lifelong practice. It's not trying to it's not about doing things every single day. Oh my gosh, is that a little thumbprint?
I'm not sure why that appears every once in a while. Are you using iPhone?
No, it's a
Mac?
Zoom. I have a Mac though.
The Mac, maybe the Mac does it. That's
Yeah, I'm
interesting.
not
Sorry,
sure
guys.
why. It's very
It was
random.
really agreeing with what I was saying. I was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's just about, you know, like, it's a lifelong practice. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, for
definitely.
those who are not watching the video, just a thumb up appeared on their video. And it happens sometimes with iPhones and with MacBooks, I think. I'm not sure exactly. I feel like it does that when you raise your hand in the air so that the AI, whatever, thinks that you're raising your thumb, which is something we never do in videos anymore. I feel like that's weird. But yeah, sorry, Robbie, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, no worries. It's good to give clarification when we're all laughing. But yeah, I think that is really important. And I really resonate with what you said about, you know, teaching people to fish rather than just providing them with the fish. And that's something that, you know, I also try to do when I teach yoga. You know, I teach Kriya yoga, and the style of Kriya that I teach, it's also relying on something else you were talking about earlier, where it's like, you know, the issues, our traumas, even if we feel like they're mental, they're all up here, really they're stored in our physical body all throughout different layers. And different emotions have different resonances and are stored generally in different particular places. So, you know, I could do a Kriya session where I'm just telling people, okay, you're going to breathe like this, you're going to tap on this area here, and then just have them do it. But I always give them affirmations and more information throughout the process so they know exactly, okay, we're working with the liver. That means we might be experiencing some release of anger, you know? So the more that they know, the more that they're going to really be able to both believe what's happening, commit to it, and then also understand, okay, this is a tool I can use in the future. Like if I'm feeling anger, okay, maybe I can, you know, interact with the energy of my liver a little bit and start to release that and start to process that. And that's really the way that we have to think about these healing modalities, right? we don't want to enter into the same game plan as, the Western healthcare system, because that's based on exploiting people. It's based on, giving people just enough that they feel good enough, but not actually solving their problems. Really, what a true healer means to me is someone that, it's exactly what you said. It's, I want you to be healed as quickly as possible and out of my office. Like, I don't want to ever see you again. If I do my job right, then you're going to be able to support yourself with your own knowledge base, because really we want to empower people. And that's the way that we can change the way that the world works, make people rely less on these systems that are just designed to exploit us, is by giving the tools to the people so that people can implement them themselves and they can learn themselves. And obviously, there's a role as like a teacher where you do have to go through the phase of, educating people, and they might have questions, they might come back, they might have another problem that comes up later. And it's always good to, be aware of that also, if you're someone who's learning or if you're someone who's teaching. But that the end goal should be the same, which is to make people independent in their own knowledge, in their own practice, so they can support themselves. And then once all of us are better at supporting ourselves, then we'll be so much better at supporting each other as well. Because so much of the lack of being able to give, the lack of empathy in this world, comes from this kind of ungroundedness, like this feeling of not being sure, this uncertainty in ourself, this lacking in ourself, where we feel like we can't even, if I can't even support myself, if I can't even heal myself, how can I heal someone else? How can I support someone else? And this just leads to more limiting beliefs and more internal self-preservation strategies. But the only way that we can get out of this situation is by coming together. And so that means, creating this network around us, right? So we start to heal people, we give them knowledge, maybe they start to heal themselves. And when they get to a place where they're in a healed state, then they have this beautiful wealth of knowledge, and then they can start disseminating that further out, so that, this spreads out like a ripple. And then, before you know it, more and more of the world is actually operating from a healed place, and we actually have the power that we need to make real change.
We should start an ashram in California, like all together, heal people for free. Come over. It's just like, we're just gonna heal people, like hearings one time, like 1 hour per day. We're gonna hear people for free. Like people can come, and like that'll be beautiful. We should start thinking
I actually have been wanting to implement that, because I try, like, even with my my consultations, I have, hey, we could do the consultation and I can give you the foundations and you do things on your own, or a higher price. Do you want me to hold your hand, really give you, like all this like realm of information? But then some people can't even afford a consultation, right? But I still want them to have healing. So I've been, like ruminating on the idea, like maybe like once a week I could do like free like consultations for that day for like low income and stuff. Because we did that in school. Like we would actually go to like low income and just see like lines of people all day and just give them herbal recommendations and stuff. So it's
beautiful. Compassionate care. Compassionate care is the most important thing. And I have the same problem in the sense, because ultimately the people I want to help are the people who are mostly in need. But the people who are in need are poor. And so there's always this constant need to support ourselves while we heal others, and at the same truly wanting to help those who truly need help, which don't have the money to access our practices. And so totally, I would love to start like some sort of like free clinic one day. And we should think about that for real. Like let's plan about that after this episode. But this is what we need right now, especially in society, because we live in a world in which really like people are sicker than ever. Like everybody has a lot of illnesses, pathologies. And I'm just reading a book, like listening to a book called Cancer is Not a Disease, which is another thing, like another kind of disease that is really affecting a bigger portion of the population, and that then causes additional troubles afterwards, and especially side issues after the treatments for cancer, for example. So there are so many things that affect the population. They go from mental illness to various kinds of physiological and psychosomatic illnesses that definitely they need healing, and they can't afford to even have treatments like Western medicine kind of treatments that ultimately make them sicker. So this is something that is deeply needed right now. So let's plan on that.
Yeah, and that's also I actually have, you've seen like my products, right? Like vending and stuff. So like I actually created my own product line. The first thing I ever created was my PMS tea, because I made it for myself for my cramps, and I made it for my girlfriends. Like, dude, this stuff works really fast. You need to sell this. I'm like, that's a good idea. So then all my products came from a need of for myself or for my clients as I started seeing them, and I was like, wow, this stuff works. Like, I don't care if anyone buys it. I'm just making it because I know it works and people need it. And even the teas are only $17. So that's like things that are affordable for people who are at least needing healing like immediately. And then I know you were wanting.
Tell us more about this. Tell us more about these products. Like, do you have a sample or something to show
Yeah.
real quick? Or like tell us what's in it, or what kind of actual products you're selling. Because if it's how many 50% of the population of the world suffer of some sort of PMS. So tell us more.
So I have a few products. I have teas, I have tinctures, I have like skin serum and hair serum. So yeah, the PMS tea is mainly for like cramps, and it also detoxifies the uterus, and it's even good for people with like anemia or anyone that has like really bad gas and bloating. So I'll even give like men like, oh, you're suffering with bloating. I know it says PMS tea, but take it anyway. And then I also have a tea for like immune and respiratory, another tea for people with like gut issues, and then I have a pitta tea that's really good for cooling the body. I'm drinking it all the time in the summer.
I'm on that.
Yeah, it's really yummy. It has like hibiscus and dried mango powder in it, and it actually started because I had my own garden and I started making things with that. And then the tinctures, I import shilajit resin from the Himalayas. Shilajit, it's really high in minerals. It can actually help with not claiming it can help with cancer, but it can, and it can help with anything. And I also make it into a tincture, and then I have a tincture for sleep and like mental issues, so like stress, anxiety, insomnia. And then another tincture when the ceiling fell on me. I was in a lot of body pain, and I was like, pain pills aren't working and they're causing more issues. So I created a tincture for body pain and gave it to like my other friend who had pain. She's like, this stuff works, you need to sell it. So I've had people say they've actually gotten off of pharmaceuticals even after just a few days of using my tincture like every day. So it works like taking a pain pill, like taking a Midol, like a Vicodin, but with herbs. And all of my products, I create them where they'll work within a few minutes of taking them. So all of them, you'll see relief within 15 to 30 minutes, but the more you use it, it'll fix the root cause. And my favorite product is actually, I call it the Fountain of Youth Elixir, inspired by my mom. She had a lot of different health issues, and she's like, sweetie, like, can you just downsize? It takes me like so much to take all these herbs and teas. I was like, no, mom, you need them. And I was like, even I'm tired of taking a tea for this, a supplement, vitamin, and it's just overwhelming. Most people are actually like this. So what if I just created everything you needed in one bottle? So I sat and I formulated an herb for every single organ, every single tissue, high in vitamins and minerals. And it helps with hormone balancing in women. It helps with gut health, mental health, and that's my favorite product. And like, I don't even do teas all the time. Like, this is my elixir, this is all I need.
So what's the tincture exactly for our audience? What's the tincture exactly? How do you use it?
Okay. So a tincture is an extraction of herbs. It's even safe for kids to take. It's actually, you take a high grade alcohol, and then I have a machine that like heats and cools it up and down for like hours, and then it ferments in the dark for like months. So what it does is it really pulls out all the herbs, and it absorbs immediately into the blood system, rather than tea or pills that you're taking have to go through the digestion process if you're even digesting. And most people, their digestion is messed up, so they're not absorbing the nutrients. That's where I get people like, I'm eating so healthy and I'm taking all the vitamins and herbs, and I look at their tongue and I'm like, oh, you have malabsorption. You could take all the pills and herbs you want, but you're not going to absorb any of them until you fix your gut health and your gut biome. So tinctures are really good for feeling effects like immediately.
So you put them under your tongue, for example.
I like to put them in water and drink it like a tea, or you just put it under the tongue for on the go. And I found it's easier for traveling that way, because you're not going to travel with teas, right? You can easily travel with like a tincture.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
I think that's really cool that you made it so that you'd feel some effects within 15 to 30 minutes. Like our society that we live in, we all want the instant fixes. And
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times for me, when I've taken herbs in the past, like I feel the effects, but it's cumulative. So I start feeling a little bit after like 3 or 4 days, and then really the effects start to kick in after several weeks. But it's amazing. Can you talk a little bit maybe how you've designed them to be so fast acting?
I put a lot of love, a lot of energy, and a lot of herbs, and I said it's the Vata mind. So I am always thinking of like new ideas, channeling, creating new ideas. So for example, with the pain and inflammation tincture, people can have pain for a lot of reasons. Yes, a physical trauma. So they need the analgesic properties that send the signals to the body, hey, let's not feel pain right now, just like a pain pill does. But with pain, that could also be, people have like arthritis or they have Crohn's. So usually it's also gut issues. And I'm sorry, unless you're living Ayurvedically, probably everyone has gut issues. But so I also put herbs in there for gut health, because that will help cleanse the blood. There's also herbs in there for the liver to help cleanse the blood and filter the blood so that you're nourishing your tissues with healthy blood. So the body can heal itself. And then also pain is really, really bad. So it affects your mental state, and maybe even mental state. You can have emotions cause physical pain in the body. So I put herbs in there for the mind. And when I think of a formulation, I think, okay, it's not just gut health that's causing these issues. It's this. Like I had made a tincture back in the day for hair, nail, and skin. Now my fountain of youth elixir does all of that. But like hair, nail, and skin, the foundations of that, yeah, let's do some herbs for hair, nail, and skin. But there could be many issues why it's not working. You could be really, really stressed. So I put herbs in there for the mind. It could be because your gut health isn't healthy. So I'll put gut herbs in there. Or you need your liver functionality. A lot of people have excessive liver issues and toxicity that we're living in this world, and then the kidneys to filter the blood as well too. So I'm an overthinker, which can be a detriment sometimes. It also be very, very great. So like I overthink of the big picture of what really is going on in people's bodies and in people's tissues, and I feel like that's what makes them so amazing and so unique to other things
Yeah,
in the
you're
It's
thinking
definitely
holistically, like you're
yeah.
looking at the whole picture, and that's the right way to look at things, and that's again, I think the reason that a lot of Western medicine gets it a little bit wrong. They're looking so specific. They're taking one microphone, like one microscope, putting another one in front of it, getting down to like the very, very small piece of the puzzle. But when you just put one piece of the puzzle in, is it going to have a complete puzzle? No, you're still missing all these other pieces here. And what you're doing is you're looking at, okay, maybe there's these pieces that are missing, but then there's this whole area of the puzzle over here that, could be relating to this issue. And if I start to fill in over here and over here, then you get a whole picture kind of almost no matter what the root cause actually was. So that's great.
It's amazing. And like from a scientific standpoint, what I really like to show people the difference between what Western medicine does and what holistic and Ayurvedic medicine instead do, which is in science, in Western science and Western medicine, what we actually do is basically, as Robbie said, we go and try and fix a specific enzyme that we think is causing the problem. For example, let's say blood pressure or blood thinners. So what happens is that a pharmaceutical company would do a lot of experiments to see what exact enzyme, protein, and factor inside the cell is actually causing for the whole body to go through changes that ultimately result in higher blood pressure or low blood pressure. So once they identified that specific molecule that if you touch it, it's like the button that you need to touch to change the blood pressure, they give you exactly that specific molecule to change that specific target. So it looks like perfect. From how I'm describing it, it looks like it should be actually the preferred method to do things, but ultimately is not, because that is just the surface of the problem. Because what that specific molecule, the reason why we all have the same molecules in our body, if that specific molecule is more active or lesser active in certain people more than in others, that means there is a reason for that. So the surface is that that specific molecule is more active. And so if you take a pill and you take a bioactive compound, an active compound that targets that specific molecule and turns it off, you are turning off that specific molecule so that you disconnect the root cause from the symptom. And so you're not going to have the symptom anymore, but the root cause is still there. You're just stopping to see that. It's almost as like the same idea as painkillers. It's the same idea as the painkillers. Yeah, you can get a painkiller, but like there is a reason why you had pain, and that reason why is not going away. You just stopped realizing that you have an issue. And so Western medicine ultimately disconnects you from the root cause of your problems by removing the symptoms so that you don't know you're still sick and you keep being sick. And the problem is that all these root causes and all these things that make us sick, if we don't heal them, they keep causing more and more problems. That again, if we keep targeting all of those problems through Western medicine approaches, what we do is we keep just cutting off the surface of the weeds of our garden, and we don't realize that the real problem is in the soil. We need to fix the soil. And so that's what instead holistic medicine does. If you have a problem, you can't just remove the symptom. It's like if you take a plant and that plant has dark spots, you don't go with makeup and put some and clean, like, and put some makeup on and you're like, I fixed the plant, right? That's not how it works, but that's exactly how Western world works. Like if you have acne, you put makeup on. If you have pain because maybe you have a very bad issue that is causing you pain, let's remove the pain. Let's pretend it's not there. So all these putting things under the rug is really a very toxic way of dealing with our health. And it's really not a way of dealing with our health. It's just a way of covering up so that we can keep going to work and keep being productive for society and keep being really like pretending to be good people. Like same thing as antidepressants. Antidepressants don't cause the root cause, but they allow you to respond to the phone, to the clients and keep being nice, right? And so you keep smiling. And so your boss can pretend that the environment is not toxic and that all of these employees are all fine and happy, but they're really not. They're just all on antidepressants. So we live in a world that ultimately tries to just fix the surface so that everything looks fine. And under the surface, everything is really rotten and unhealthy and needs love and needs care. So I love all the love that you're putting into what you're doing, because I can tell. And first of all, from an energetic standpoint, love is a real thing. And when you do things with love, people receive it. And so you're healing people just by putting all that effort and all that love. That's already healing. And thank you so much. And you're blessed for that. But also all the care that you're putting into this, designing all of these things to make sure that you truly give people, once they drink your tincture or your teas or they use your products, they just go in their entire body and heal them entirely in a holistic way. That's beautiful. And then as a result of that, as a result of healing the root cause, with time, they're not going to have acne anymore. They're not going to have pain anymore. They're not going to. So that's a result. So the reason why I feel like holistic and Eastern medicine oftentimes are attacked in a sense have been attacked for a long time by Western medicine and by Western healthcare, is that they don't cure the symptom, the superficial symptom right away. Because if you need to cure the root cause of the problem first, then it takes time for your acne to go away. But if you use something like a lotion that removes completely all the inflammation on your face, then you're not going to have acne anymore, right? In like a day or two, but then the root cause is still there. You just have forgotten about it. And so the problem with the reason why these things are not as common, but now they're gaining traction, obviously, it's that they don't cure the symptom right away. And so it takes some time, but it takes some time for, like, we need to dedicate time to healing for us to actually to heal, because removing the symptom it's so easy sometimes, and it may take a second. But if the root cause is not going away, you're going to have the same problem forever, or you're going to become dependent from a lotion or a pill or a practice that doesn't actually cure you and only trims the surface of the problem every time, but the problem keeps growing. And so you just have to keep trimming it regularly. So
Right. And then
yes,
also it's like, each time your body is so good at adapting. So each time you put on a little bit of that lotion, your body is like, I still have this big root cause issue going on. Like I need to bring this to your awareness because that's really the function of pain in the body is to bring our awareness to things that need to be healed. And also, it can be expressed not even just as physical pain, but like are the symptoms that we have. So, when we tell our body that we don't care about what they're doing, we kind of ignore it and we put on the cream, it's going to come back even stronger. And then we need even more of the cream. And then, get to things where you're having toxic levels of, a lot of these, again, Western pharmaceuticals, we don't look at all the side effects of what this is actually doing. These are very complicated metabolic pathways, all the signaling cascades in our bodies are so complicated. Western science doesn't know how they work. We know some of the little pieces, how they fit together, but we don't know how complicated these interactions truly are. So, in the sense that like, we take a certain chemical and it's doing one particular action, maybe that is correct, but we don't know all the other ways that it's interacting in our system, all the other ways that it could be bringing us out of harmony, out of, balance. And it's why when you watch like an ad for a pharmaceutical on TV, like there's that maybe 5 second period where they're like, no, 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 the side effects may include heart failure, blah, blah, blah. And like sometimes some of those side effects are even what the initial disease was, which is the craziest thing because they're really not sure exactly how it's working. There's so many different things that could happen. And again, it goes back to also each of us is composed a little bit differently. Each of us functions a little differently. So even if you do, a study where you're looking at a whole bunch of different people, there's still going to be when you aggregate and average that data, you're going to get the average person. But really, there is no such thing as the average person. We're all unique. We're all different. It's going to be interacting in our systems in different ways in each one of us. And when you don't look at that difference, when you just kind of assign the blank, canvas to each one of us, the same standard model, then we don't know exactly how the specific interactions of whatever we're taking is going to affect us as an individual. So it's important to
like
see those differences and embrace them, which I think is exactly what you said Ayurveda is doing.
and I'd like
yeah
to touch on how the environment affects us, because all the things you were saying is basically that regardless of what we do, if we try to put patches on, if we try to treat the symptoms, but we don't treat the root cause, we don't go anywhere. We really don't change anything. And if the problem is the environment, if we don't fix the environment, and the environment is our lifestyle, is a lot of things. And as you said, also how we become is based on what your mom was doing in the womb when she was conceived. She had conceived you, she was raising you in the womb. So all of these things affect how we are and how prone we are to get diseases. And so there's so many environmental factors that are much, much more macroscopically affecting our health than if you just put a little pill and you try to treat a little piece, a little microscopic piece of the puzzle. What do you think is going to happen? Like, right? Like this is right nonsensical. Like, and so how do you feel like Ayurveda deals with the environmental factors? Like, do you take them into account?
um yeah it so like when I do my consultations are like 2 hours long, like minimum, because I'm like, okay, I had a client who had an autoimmune like lupus, celiac, and even in asking her for like hours all this information, even following up like a month later with I found out, oh, she's working when she's working in a place where it's like the skydivers, and she's walking from building to building. She's inhaling the plane fumes, which no one would think to tell me that, and because I assessed, okay, we're fixing the diet, we're fixing all of these other things. I'm like, let's eliminate toxins in your life, shampoo, candles, incense, like, okay, now that I know that this is your environment at work, you need to shut that window so you're not inhaling the plane fumes. And wear a mask when you're walking from building to building. Like sadly, she had, anytime she wanted to go to the bathroom, she had to leave the building and go to the bathroom and inhale these plane fumes. I'm like, there's toxins in everything. You know, from our water, the shower water, to it's in all of our food and the pesticides. So like everyone has like all the environment, there's toxins all around us, especially in LA with all the smog and the really old pipes. And in talking with like symptoms as well, a lot of people think, like, come to me like, oh, I'm pretty okay, my gut's health is fine. But then I ask them questions. I'm like, you get bloated every time you eat, you have acid reflux. I'm like, the body gives little signals that this is actually an imbalance. And if you let that cascade, it can become something like an autoimmune or something really serious that you might not be able to actually heal from, or might take a really, really long time. The more doshas that get deranged or out of balance, the harder it is to balance someone. So yeah, definitely environment is key. And also environment is, I ask people in the consultation, are you happy at home? Are you happy at work? What are your life goals? Because environment at home, that is super crucial. You know, I've had clients where like they like their home is like abusive or like toxic, and like that plays into that environment as well. So then, okay, now I need to give them like journaling practices, be like, hey, you need to journal about your emotions related to your mom, so you can like release that. And that actually is like a prescription for them, you know, journaling. So environment definitely plays a big role.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to even tell kids these sort of things, like to even show kids, because if we had time to understand ourselves and to truly understand our own nature and how things affect us, both as parents and as kids, the world will be a much, much better place, because we will not have to spend so long to understand by ourselves how we function, how the body functions, how the world function, how the body functions, how society functions, all of these things. If we will have a little bit of education in school about Ayurveda as much as other things that can really give us a lot of wisdom on how to how to grow better into the highest self that we can be and that we become with time, we will spend a lot lesser time trying to wonder and make a lot of mistakes and make the world worse. And probably this is done on purpose by our society, because obviously that time frame is a time frame in which then we start becoming patients and consumers and irrational, unconscious people who then become are just exploited. So it makes sense that we are not taught in school or in society how these things work, because if we knew, there would be no way of getting us to do all of those things that really are not for our well-being. And so I feel like, especially for the herbs, I really like all the things you're doing and how you use herbal medicine. So Ayurveda is like, how would you describe the actual approach of Ayurveda in just a sentence, like that? Like, what are all the things that are part of the Ayurvedic approach?
So all the things that are part of the Ayurvedic approach would be finding out the person's prakriti, their doshic nature. Then also considering what is their lifestyle, what do they eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then treating everyone like a snowflake. That's why, you know, you could have a family of like 8 siblings, everyone's shaped and diet and health issues are so different. So figuring out what makes them a snowflake, and customize a formula of lifestyle for them. So that could be herbs, diet, yoga, meditation, breath work, journaling, body treatments, massage, energy healing, whatever they need in that time to customize to them. Because it's, like I said, everyone's a snowflake. So not one thing that I recommend for this person might work for this person as well. And that's also why I have always been very careful with what I post online about. You know, I don't post a lot about information of like herbs with Ayurveda or certain knowledge on Ayurveda, because I don't want the general public to say, hey, some Ayurvedic practitioner said this is good for me, so I can do this. Oh, I heard turmeric's good, let me have like 3 tablespoons of this a day. No, that can become toxic. Anything that is medicinal and excess cannot be good for you. So always, be mindful of anything that you hear as Ayurvedic. Use your intuition and do your research, or talk to a practitioner or a healthcare professional, like, hey, is the dosage okay? Is this okay for me? A lot of people, where they make that misunderstanding, is they say, oh, I think I'm this dosha, let me do a diet for this dosha. You're actually supposed to do a diet for the dosha that's out of balance. And by the way, I do actually have a free Prakriti dosha quiz on my website, and the link in my bio Instagram too. Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna add the description for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I like it how, multimodal really your approach is. It's not, a lot of people hear Ayurveda and they think, okay, they're going to give me some herbs, and that's kind of as much as it is. But, I think herbs can work for some people, but for some people, that's not the ideal approach. Maybe you need a combination of different things. And the more different ways, the more different sources of knowledge, the more different sources of healing that you can bring in, the more tools you have, the more different people you can treat, because like you said, we're all snowflakes. Each person requires a slightly different approach. Maybe even you have 2 people that look exactly the same on paper. They're going to just have that slightly different, even if the problem is the same. Maybe one person needs this problem solved with herbs, another person needs it solved by journaling and meditation. Even if it's the same problem, they're going to process it differently based on the approach that you give them. And yeah, how do you kind of pick those? Is it like, obviously you have a lot of knowledge on all of these subjects, but tell me a little bit about like the intuitional aspect behind it, because this is something that I've also noticed is really important when you're doing this kind of healing work, is, trusting the intuitive readings that you're getting from the situation, because really the intuition relates to this higher form of awareness. It is factoring in all of these things that we're not really aware of. When we receive sensory input from all of our senses, there's so many layers of filtering before it actually comes into this picture that we call our 3-dimensional reality, that all of this stuff is just filtered out, but some of that is still valuable information. So I think the intuition is looking at things on a more broad spectrum, understanding that more of these factors are involved in the situation, and using that innate wisdom in the world to kind of guide us as the ego, as the small person, in the right direction. So is that something that you experience at all when you're doing consultations?
Yeah, definitely. And a fun little story I like to give with like using your intuition is, in the program, like I had the ceiling fall on me, so I had like actual memory loss. I couldn't even remember the password to my phone. It was really bad, so I was having to heal from that. So going to school for Ayurveda, trying to memorize all of these herbs, and one thing that my professor stuck with me was, he said, like, treat the herbs like they're your best friends. All these herbs have a consciousness, and if you tap into that energy, they'll speak to you. So when I was really starting to like see clients and finishing the last of the program, I started getting they would ask like, oh, hey, what do you think, which herb do we need to use? And I would raise my hand and like, I don't know what this herb does, but I'm getting a thought in my head that's telling me it's this herb. And so really working with them as if they're my friends. And then in creating the products, I would get this download of like, hey, I need to put this in. Or when I'm making custom formulations for a client, I'm getting, even though I know, okay, I'm going to recommend these herbs, then something is telling me, oh, I actually need to add this herb in. Oh yeah, that flows in perfectly with what's going on. And, really using my intuition for that. And like I said, there's so many things in Ayurveda. Like when I first started, I used to give people like 10 pages of information, like, here, let me change your life with breathwork and yoga. And then I realized like that is too much for people, right? So also using my intuition for what can I give them that's not going to overwhelm them, and slowly have them integrate this. And what do they need immediately now? What is their biggest problem now? Are they currently like, pain is their biggest issue? hormone balancing is their biggest issue, depression, anxiety is their biggest issue, or they're dealing with energetic attachments, you know, like what is the one that's causing them the most right now that I can help them with so they can move along as well. So using my intuition in that way. And like you said, of, you know, you could have 20 people that have the same diagnosis, right? Oh, you have this issue, but really seeing like you need to do some journaling because this is like a trauma from your childhood that's actually causing this, or you have your lifestyle with your diet isn't great, or you're actually doing okay with the diet, but there's all these other things going on. So what's that? So kind of, I really like to, I like when I see people, like I look at them as like I'm seeing their tissues and like their veins and like the elements in their body, and I'm like, where are the imbalances? And like in Ayurveda, we can diagnose people by looking at the tongue because it's connected to the internal body. And you can all be looking at people on like a movie or on the street, and I'm like, oh, I can see in your face like you're having some kidney issues or like your liver, you know. Like people don't even know I'm just like assisting them for fun. But and I'm like, should I tell them something? Like I can tell they're having like liver failure. I've actually have gone up to people. I'm like, hey, I just wanted to tell you, like, I'm noticing maybe some imbalances with like your liver. Like, how'd you know?
Oh my gosh, it's so incredible because I feel like I would like to ask you because I feel like we have the same problem. I like to ask you, what's your main struggle in telling people the truth that you see about themselves?
So the main struggle for me was making sure, you know, like I'm a wealth of knowledge and I love sharing my knowledge and I'm a bleeding heart. I love helping and healing people, but really being mindful of making sure, you know, with the analogy of being a lighthouse. So I am the lighthouse and I'm shining the light, and I'm not going to go swim out and possibly drown myself to save you. You can follow the light in your boat or swim and then come to me. So that's where what I've been finding of like, okay, I need to make sure I'm, because it's also a lot of energy, you know, like I'm working like events and festivals and talking to like so many people a day, repeating the conversations, and I'm always doing little mini consultations before people buy products from me, and just making sure like I'm using my energy wisely and not just talking to people who are not going to receive that. Granted, I do love being activators for people and be like, let me just plant this little seed and I'll see you probably a few years from now, you'll come back around once you're like, you know. So yeah, that for me, that was making sure I'm healing and giving my knowledge to the right people who deserve it and are ready to integrate that.
Yeah, I had the same thing because I'm also as a psychic and as a medium, and I have a lot of knowledge on people from their eyes, from like their energy. Like I know so many things about just being near people or talking to them on the phone or just a text from text that mean nothing. I get so much information that's crazy. But it's I had to learn also as well because a lot of times especially if I see that people have a problem that they need to solve, or that is going to cause them problems in a few months or in a few years, I would like to kind of save them, like this savior that I want to tell them in advance, this is the problem you're going to encounter and this is how you're going to solve it. And I write books on these things. I like to help people also solve the problems, but that I had to realize, as you said, that the only thing we can do is to shine our light bright so that people can see that and come to us when it's time. I can't go to people and save them because I tried a lot of times and unfortunately it doesn't work because people who don't know what kind of problems what kind of dangers they have around, they can't actually possibly understand what you're telling them, and they can't possibly understand that you're trying to save them from something. They can perceive you as aggressive or as someone trying to be presumptuous, even to tell them something they don't want to hear, they don't care about. And he said maybe you're just trying to save them. And unfortunately, this is something we as healers, I think, and Robbie, we talk about that a lot. As healers, we need to learn that too, that the only thing you can do is to shine your light, be the lighthouse, and so that when people understand that they have a problem, they know where the lighthouse is and they can save themselves, because you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. And so I feel like in general, one of the main reasons also why holistic medicine and Eastern medicine and Ayurveda have been disparaged for a long time is also that they were telling people the truth, right? And so unfortunately, telling people the truth and like showing people the real cause, like, look, your cause is your mom is toxic. That's difficult to hear, right? It's a difficult thing to hear. Like, your problem is that your work is toxic, or like, or that you're eating the things you really love to eat are the ones you should cut out. All those kind of truths that really going to the root cause of the problem, I think, has a lot to do with going to the truth. And so telling people the truth. And that's why I was asking you this question, because I feel like Ayurveda has a lot to do with truth. And unfortunately, we live in a world, and again, we talk a lot about this because we live in a world in which people have become sensitive to the truth. People have become more and more, they get hurt if you tell them the truth, because they feel like they can't heal, or they're not supposed to change their habits, or they want to belong to a certain category of people, and they want to belong to a certain group, they want to belong to communities. And so they don't realize that sometimes those things are toxic for them, and so they actually don't want to hear the truth. And so I think Ayurveda encounters a lot of these same problems as well, because it's ultimately a truth bearer. Like, all the things that bring truth are in some way attacked. And not only that, but also in general, when we try to unravel the truth, it has its own painful for us as well as healers, that we try to tell people, look, like when you look at someone and you look at their tongue and you're like, you're gonna have liver failure in a year. You need to know there's a lot of pain attached to that. So being healers has its own pitfalls, and we need to also rebalance often. So it's ultimately, I think, even becoming healers and knowing all the knowledge that you know, the Ayurveda, it's beautiful because you can use it on yourself as well to like rebalance yourself and go through a world that is mostly traumatized, that is mostly made by people who are detaching from the root causes. They just want makeup. They just want to look pretty and forget about the trauma, forget about the whole, forget about, because all the things you're saying, even for example, like intestinal issues or mental issues, they ultimately are caused by ego, by trauma, by things we talk about in general, by all of the things that from a physical standpoint, from a yogic and scientific and all these different standpoints that we treat things, we look at things at from, ultimately they are just ways of telling us that the ultimate problem is always trauma, because sometimes it may be generational trauma, like people are attached to energies that come from their parents or their families, or like they don't even realize, because it's something that you have not experienced yourself. And so it comes from, and actually I would like to ask you how you know that, and like, and so all of these things that we don't even know sometimes that we have, or the trauma that we don't want to look at. I think for me, the most difficult part is encountering people who don't want to heal. For me, that's painful. Like, and I know a lot of these people that really prefer to put on the mask and go every day around and kind of smile, pretend they're smiling, they're happy, but they're really not. They're really not. They're really like incapable of seeing or really going to the root cause. And so I think that's the most painful part for me as a healer, to even tell them that what they need to do, because they don't want to hear that. And so I think that's why I was asking you, like, what's your struggle? Like, do you struggle with people that maybe come to you for Ayurveda and think they're gonna get a very superficial solution, and instead you actually go to the root cause and you actually try to tell them, look, you shouldn't do this. Do you ever get those kind of patients that you try to tell them what they need to do, and you realize they have a blockage, they have like they have a boundaries where they don't want to overcome certain walls?
Yeah, usually I mostly experience the people that have boundaries or walls around healing that express like wanting to get a consultation or want to get a healing session from me, and they never book it. They never follow through. And I'm like, that's because like, yeah, change is scary.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is you're used to living in your pain and discomfort. So as shocking as that is, like even subconsciously, if you no longer live in that pain and discomfort, that's uncomfortable. That's different. Humans do not like things that are different. Humans want consistency. So that's mostly where I noticed that the people that have blockages with that. And you know, I've also done some like NLP training as well, so that really helped me a lot, because I when I first started I was like, I'm a really good Ayurvedic practitioner, but where is that disconnect where people are not like following through, or they're not doing this continuously? So that's where like I tried to piece together like, oh no, you actually, like I did some life coaching certifications as well. I'm like, you need to do life coaching in there and NLP, because people process information differently. They hear things differently. You need to, are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory? Do I need to, like, which ways do I need to speak this information or give it to you so that it kind of processes? And, you know, of course you do always, you know, with all amongst clients that I've had, like, yeah, there's people here and there who have a blockage, and you know, I try and like I'll talk about it, like, well, like, where is this coming from, and let's get to the root cause of where this blockage is so that we can move past that, because me as a practitioner, I need to be the one to point that out, right? And you know, I used to be, when I first started, very like more passive, really sweet and loving, like a kappa, and I'm like, no, sometimes people need that, they need that mama bear energy of like, hey, like I you know, I care for you, I love you, like let me call you, but like you do need to do your stuff, you do need to take your herbs, you're taking your herbs, you know. So
Yeah, absolutely, because ultimately also 90% of the healing capability of Ayurvedic and holistic practices in general comes from your actions. Like it's like you're the patient. If the patient is doing those things, it's really like, it's not just about taking the pill, because taking the pill, it's easy, right? It's an action that takes a second. And that's why Western medicine spreads so much, because it's an easy action to do. You just pay $10 and you take that thing and the symptom is going to disappear. But doing all of those things all together in a 360 way, that you actually affect your, like, you tackle the problem from an environmental perspective, and you fix the soil, and you give the nutrients, and you make sure that you have enough sun, and all of these things all together that like have to do with your relationships, the food, the diet, healing your trauma, like looking at the truth, really wanting to heal. All of these things are like take a lot of actions, but at the same time, there's really no. Someone said that, I don't remember who, I have it on my wall, that there is no shortcut. There are no shortcuts for anywhere worth going, because ultimately, again, the universe is consistent. And so if you make an oak tree, that is going to be an oak tree. If you try to draw an oak tree and make it bigger and bigger every day, you're going to have a drawing of an oak tree that is bigger. You're not going to have an oak tree. So things take time. And unfortunately, a lot of people identify, as you said, with their pain and with their victimism. A lot of people go around and talk to their friends, have this thing, have this problem, my mom and my dad. Solving all of those issues suddenly gives them nothing to talk about, nothing to be. So it really has a lot to do with ego and with identity ultimately. And that's why people tend to prefer that uncomfortable life and pain, because they identify with it. They identify with that person going through those things, and that allows them to have an identity in the world. I know people that really come to me often, are like, hey, I have this problem, because they know that I'm a person, like a problem solver. But now I know that it's just a trick, because they don't actually want the solution. They want for me to spend some time with them to chat with them, and because they think that the problem solving is the right bait for me to spend time with them, that otherwise I will not be interested in talking to them. They give me the bait so that I can talk to them and solve their problem, and they never actually solve it, because if they will do, suddenly, what will they present to me next time? Right. And so there are a lot of people who don't want to solve their problems because ultimately they find care if they have a problem. Like a lot of elderly have this problem, which is a form of Munchausen syndrome. And we've talked about that also in previous episodes, in which they present you like they're constantly sick. And after a while, they don't want to actually get healthy because their whole family takes care of them if they're sick. And so we will really be solving a lot more problems in the world if people will just have just love and understand that they don't need to be sick, that they don't need to be victims, they don't need to have problems for them to have love. They can just have love because we give love to each other. And instead, we are also distracted from our societies in so many ways that we don't give love to each other. So I feel like healing the world comes from also giving love to people, so they also are more prone to wanting to know the truth, because ultimately that's, I feel like a lot of people and practitioners like you may have a lot more clients if people were more inclined to know the truth and to wanting to solve their actual issues. And instead, a lot of people in society don't want to solve their problems. So I think an important message that I want to give to people that maybe want to try to change and to get a better alternative to Western medicine is to also uh, be open to the truth. Like, because ultimately the truth is the only thing that really gets you to the root cause of your problems. And once you have solved them, you're just going to be a better person, a better version of yourself. People are going to love you better. You're not going to have to use all of these tricks to get attention, or you're not going to have to identify with a victim. You can be powerful. You can be empowered. You can be shining your light instead of being this victim of like this sick person and traumatized. So really, like, I think what we're trying to give with this podcast is like the entire journey of awakening, to show people that yes, it's scary to start a journey and to continue, because they don't know what's on the other side of the bridge. They don't know how the entire tunnel looks like. They don't know whether it's going to be better or not. They just know that they're abandoning something that they know for something completely unknown. And so I think in general, something that I want for people to know is that, you see, this is how Shanti looks like, and she's an Ayurvedic practitioner. She's beautiful and she shines her light and she's healthy. This is how you get, once you get that, like, to use Ayurveda, once you actually get to know all of these things and to truly want to go to the root cause of your problems. That's how you shine. And so I think that's what we're trying to give people, so that people understand that they can and they must get closer to this sort of practice, to a more holistic and truthful way of treating their problems, so that they understand, yes, okay, maybe it's scary at the beginning because I don't know exactly how it's going to look like on the other side, but I know for a fact that it's going to look better. So once they know that, then they can start the journey. And so I feel like all of these like breadcrumbs we're giving with the interviews are also ways of leading people towards, okay, these are all the breadcrumbs you can use and you can eat and you can take. They're going to take you to a better place, like one by one. So get closer to them, because it's all part of the same tree. It's all part of the same journey towards awakening, toward becoming better versions of ourselves. And ultimately, it all has to do, and we always get to understand that every practice that truly heals you has to do with the truth. That's what Ayurveda does. That Ayurveda gives people the truth through understanding their health, their true nature, their shape in the world, their function, and how to better, to truly heal the root cause, instead of putting patches and try to fix the symptoms and train the grass. And instead of doing superficial things, they can truly go to the root cause, and with remedies that are very natural, and they're all based on herbs and maybe love, and served by people that are really also actually embodying those things, because oftentimes you go to doctors who prescribe as a pill they have never taken. And so instead, these are people, like people who work in Ayurveda, people who actually embody their practice and their teachings and what they do, and they truly believe in what they're doing. They're not doing it because a pharmaceutical company or an insurance company or a hospital is asking them to do that for the budget. They're doing that because they do those things for themselves. They have tried those things by themselves. They have seen that they work and that they solve a real problem. And they then tell you, please join, because here is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, all of that is great. And I think to highlight one thing that people are really uncomfortable with is it's fear and it's uncertainty. And, to really embrace healing and to really find change, you need to face these things. You need to, delve down into the deep depth of the darkness to really find that inner light that is shining from that depth. And we have to face these things. And that's really the biggest roadblock for many people is, yeah, it's like you said, it's complacency. You get into a rhythm where you're like, okay, I can be here, maybe not the happiest, but I'm surviving, it's okay. And they don't ever think that there could be, an even greater, like next level up where they can again get to that point of stability, but in a holistic, healthy, completed way where they're not kind of pushing things down and they're acknowledging everything that is coming up. They're dealing with their fears, they're dealing with all of the root issues of their problems. And that's really what we have to aim for as a society and what we need to guide people to. So yeah, thank you for helping to do that, Shanti. And we'd like to give you a couple of minutes now to promote anything that you might have going on, maybe, share some details about some of the different consultation options you have, or you already talked a lot about your products. So if you want to mention that briefly again here, feel free, but we'd love to hear from you about all of your offerings.
And where you're located, especially because we don't know
Mm.
where people are listening from.
Thank you guys. Yeah, I'm really grateful to be on this podcast, and I love there's a lot of people that are waking up, especially with the COVID shutting the world down. So everyone is on their phones and on social media and on the internet. Like there's so many people that are having awakenings that are overwhelmed and don't know where to start and don't know who to ask or who to talk to and don't know how to integrate these things or feel that they're alone. So I think that this is really amazing that you guys are doing this. And so yeah, so I have the free dosha quiz. You could take your prakriti. I did currently like update it where it'll give you like recommendations if you take the quiz. I even have I try and do free online classes, like a 1 hour one. Like I was doing one a month for a while. I actually do have the replays available on my website. I have an Ayurveda 101. So if you want to know what dosha is, the history of Ayurveda, like doshic natures, then that is on there as well. I even have another one, Ayurveda for self-love of yourself and others. I have one for women's menstrual health called like Sacred Flow. I don't know when is this podcast gonna come out? Do you know?
Probably not this
Probably in
week,
a
but
week.
next weekend.
Okay. So since that's pretty soon, I'm actually doing a free online class for women's menstrual health. It'll be in September, and then I'm actually doing a 5-week program for women's menstrual health, going over the 4 phases of our cycle. And, I'll be talking about you can get off birth control naturally and heal yourself naturally and really connecting with like we are as women, a lunar cycle. So it's a really big passion of mine to like help women. I even, like some women come to me like they're wanting to get pregnant and they got told by their doctors like you have low egg count, you have to get pregnant immediately or you can't. Like I don't subscribe to that. Like with Ayurveda and intention, I think that you could heal yourself of so many things. Even with Joe Dispenza, like you can meditate cancer away if you really actually do the work. It has been proven with science with all of this. I do health consultations, so this is available on my website. You can book with me directly. What that looks like is I'll ask you questions for hours to get to the root cause of what's going on, and then I can give you recommendations. And if you want me to give you a foundation and for a lower price, you could do the work on your own, or if you want me to hold your hand and really give you like all these customized templates, then I can do that. I am located, forgot to mention, in Los Angeles, but I can do the consultations even if you're out of the country. And then I have the herb products as well. I even have herbal smokes that you can actually, I got a lot of people where, they're sober, but they still miss smoking or they miss having something that can help them de-stress. And I started making these for myself because I like to go hiking and the altitude is really high. So I would actually smoke these with herbs because it actually dilates your bronchioles so you breathe better. But it's also really good for stress. I call them Shanti puffs.
That's cute.
And then I even have like a 888 like manifestation oil that I originally made for myself to help me like make money when I'm vending at like events and stuff. And I, used to make aura sprays back in the day and like manifestation candles and had one for each chakra. And I'm like, man, again, my 888 oil is like everything. It's all the chakras, releases negative energy, attracts positive energy, helps you manifest. So that's on my website as well. And then I also do body work. So I am a licensed massage therapist, but I do these traditional Ayurvedic treatments that are so healing and absolutely amazing. Like if you had broken bones or tissue tears or bulging discs, arthritis, depression, anxiety, the Ayurvedic treatments can help with all of these with poultices and the herbs. And then I do sound baths. I also do energy healing, cord
Energy
cutting.
healing. I had one of her energy healing was like very brief, but that was incredible. It was really good. So I highly suggest you to take advantage of that.
Well, thank you. And currently I've been doing so I used to do like full moon new moon ceremonies in the past, but lately I've been doing ceremonies with intention of like what is going on with the collective like that week that we're doing it. So that could be with like sound bath, breath work, cacao, energy healing, like shamanic energy healing as well, to really help people transmute what's going on and give people a space to talk, like educate of like what's going on with like the planets and the energy of the collective, and then give people a space to talk about this. Hey, what are you going through? And then give them a little bit of advice, because I've had to help myself with a lot of things, right? I definitely had I had a lot of trauma and a lot of issues stemming from being like a kid. So I can give people these different multi modalities to help them with, that's a passion of mine. It's like, hey, let me give you this information. It helped me. Hopefully it can help you as well too. So
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. And yeah, we'll put a link to your website down in the bio of this episode. So if anyone's listening and you want to learn more, you have the resources. And thank you again, Shanti, for coming on this episode of the podcast. It was great to have you. It was great to hear your experience, to understand a little bit more about how Ayurveda works in your world. And yeah, we hope that our listeners enjoyed this. And yeah, been a great
well, thank you guys so
conversation.
much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.